uninspiring 0-0 draw with Girona, a Catalan rival at home when you could have gone up 15 points in the Liga table. Yeah, I know people are going to be disappointed with this match, but believe it or not, I think this might be a little bit shorter of 5 headlines because, yeah, again, Barcelona are up 13 even with this draw. And with all those injuries, if I made those excuses against Real Madrid in El Clasico, I can kind of make some of the same excuses here while also saying that some of the players in this squad, I'm not sure if they're going to be around even next season. So as far as what Xavi is trying to do and build, I feel like down the stretch here, 10 more matches left, it's going to be a prove it kind of thing for a number of these players, and I'm not sure those players necessarily did that, and I think that's the worst I can take out of this match. So here they are, the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 0-0 draw with Girona. One is open from the start. Believe it or not, Barcelona's 9 goals conceded. While that is very exciting, while I am very excited about that, there were 0 shots on target in this game, by the way. We'll get to that later. I still would prefer if Barcelona would have won matches 3-1, I think, even then wind up winning 1-0. Because having games that are up and down, having Barcelona showcasing that they do usually have the better, more technical, more skillful players who are able to show you something. It gives some magic and make the game fun. So this match being as open as it was in the first few minutes, and that being Girona who got the first 2 shots, not on target, but shots in this game, you did feel like, all right, we're going to be going up and down quite a bit, and we could have some fun here. That was not the case, of course. Those will be some of those other headlines. But I also want to say, too, about Girona thing. I want to enjoy watching them. I want to have fun with them. And for those who know and have been around the podcast for the last few seasons, it's the first time since Girona was promoted in their history. Since they've been bought by Citigroup too, it just always leaves that bad taste in my mouth. That knowing that players like Ana Martinez, that we'll get to in a bit, as well as Alex Garcia, and even Tati Castellanos, who is a player that I do like. I got to see him in person a bunch, and I think he's got a little bit of something, and he is a fun addition to the Liga this season. But all of those players, if they're successful enough and do well enough, Citigroup is just going to either snatch him up to bring him to Man City, or they're going to make sure that they get every single dollar to go into those Citigroup pockets. Headline 2 is pros and cons of a track meet, because it does bring up, if you're having an end-to-end game, that there are ways that Barcelona do succeed when it becomes, you know what I mean by track meet end-to-end, and there are some cons, of course, as well. And I think when we do talk about that pro and con list, the 3 players that you want to highlight in particular are Roberto, Busquets, and Eric Garcia from the starting lineup. In the case of Roberto, it made a lot of sense that he was substituted at halftime for Kessie, just based on Kessie's performance against Madrid and Roberto's performance in the first half. I know that Roberto is renewing, but at this point, the board is likely already thinking about next season's squad. And to me, it seems like it should be Roberto or Kessie, not both. Though Roberto is already basically renewed. But I didn't really like the way that Roberto was playing that first half. It just seemed like he was a step off it. And if you're going to play end-to-end with Roberto, yes, there are moments when he's going to be able to find those spaces and drive forward with the ball, but we didn't see much of that. And if he's not driving forward on the ball and creating numerical advantages on a counterattack, well, then he's just stuck behind the ball and just recycling and not really helping anything and looking a step slow. And I'm not sure if it was just he shouldn't have played in back-to-back games like this or whatever it was, but he wasn't ready for this one. I think Barcelona started on the wrong foot because of that. In the same way, you do not want those numerical counterattacks and disadvantages going against Barcelona with Eric and Busquets on the back foot. As we've said many, many times here on the podcast all throughout the year, Eric is a decent defender when he's able to anticipate and step into the play. Same thing with Busquets. If Busquets is defending on the front foot, again, that high pressure, anticipating and understanding the game better than everybody else, Busquets can have his impact be known, and those ball recoveries are still second to none in the world. But obviously, if Busquets is defending on the back foot and there are numerical disadvantages, if he has to race back and close down those spaces, you're going to have some issues. In the same regard, when you're playing in this up and down form, while Barcelona is on the ball, that means Busquets is going to be able to display those long balls that we know are still operating at such a high level because it's still elite with getting those counterattacks going. We saw that in the second half, Rafinha almost getting to it if the goalkeeper hadn't come way off his line, and Busquets showing it what he's got. So as I said, pros and cons to Busquets, with Eric Garcia even at center back, applying to a lot of those same ideas. The other pros and cons, I think, was Gavi being everywhere and also sometimes not being where he needed to be, I thought, in the build-up. But Gavi playing as a midfielder once again with Fati starting in that game was, I think, really important to not only building on his confidence, but allowing Barcelona to compete up and down. Because if you do put Gavi as a left wing in that game, and you switch that being Kessie, Roberto, and Busquets as your midfield trio, I actually do think Barcelona a lot more trouble. So having Gavi as that third midfielder next to Roberto and then even Kessie in the second half with Busquets as the third, that allowed Barcelona, even at home, to stand up to Girona in this way without Pedri and without De Jong. I'm not sure if this is Lewandowski that I'm criticizing or the function of this track meet with Lewandowski as the 9, but he was very ineffective today. So much to the point where I'm going to actually push that off to the podcast tomorrow that we're going to talk as a major topic. So Lewandowski, yeah, a big thumbs down for me. And I do want to, again, continue to think about whether or not that is an individual thing that we have to consider, or it's a formation, it's a function, and it's who he's not working well with. Because even with that 3 front line with Ansu and Rafinha to his left and right, and Ansu even playing underneath him, I have a lot of questions on Lewandowski that I want to think more about for tomorrow's show. 3 is spells of possession. You can't say that both these teams didn't have at least points in this match where you felt like they could have taken the front foot. And it was both of the squads. For Barcelona, they had some good patience and build-up when the second half began. And I think that Xavi kind of must have told them at halftime, hey, take a breath, slow this down. Not only about the league table or the standings, but we are letting Girona kind of get into this game, have their chances, even if they're not on target. But especially when Barcelona were moving the ball from left to right with Balde pushing things forward, getting high and wide, as we know, in that 3-2-5, and then getting it over to that right side. And it wasn't even Rafinha. Rafinha would be tucking in, looking for some kind of shot. That meant that it was Koundé, it was Araujo. They were the ones with those wide open looks coming in from that right side into the box, and Koundé skies it right over. Start of the second half when they had that pretty good possession to Barcelona. But Girona also had probably the best spell of the entire game there in possession in the second half. It was Arnau Martinez from the center area feeding Castellanos, who missed that 1v1 chance with Ter Stegen. And that's the kind of miss that does put a small asterisk on Barca's 9 goals conceded. He could even squared it, and that's a goal too. So Barcelona, very fortunate, I think, to get a clean sheet. There have been times this season, you could go back and listen to these match headlines throughout the entire year, that there were times when I felt like Barcelona earned their clean sheet, and there are times like today when they probably should have conceded 1 or 2, and I still put goals conceded this season at what it would be a reasonable and still league leading 16 or 17 this year as opposed to 9, which, as we know, as Culés, is going to go down in great history, not only in Spain, but throughout all of Europe in domestic competitions. Then for Xavi, he had some questionable choices, and because Barcelona wound up with 0-0, I think we can still ask questions of the substitution pattern. But in the same way, I think the run of play did prove Xavi right. It was Ansu Fati coming out for Ferran Torres with Xavi's faith in Rafinha, I think, making a goal out of nothing like he keeps doing in the Liga. That's probably why he kept Rafinha on for that little stretch there after that. But I would have liked to see Ferran on the right. And I also thought this game was better suiting Ansu with its up and down nature, allowing him to find more space inside than he usually gets. And the space to combine with teammates were bigger as well. But as we know, again, Ansu just not being able to capitalize on anything. But unlike other times when I felt like Ansu was trying too hard or trying to do too much, I think it was Lewandowski who kind of let him down as opposed to the inverse of that, which can happen. But then Xavi did put on Alba, and that made more sense at that point, moving Torres over to the right with Alba as the left winger to deliver a final ball from the left. And that run of play with about 10 minutes left made those subs make sense. Getting Alba with space outside the box makes Lewandowski so much more dangerous. And it's one of those things where that's not the way that Barcelona wants to play. I know, just slinging in crosses like that. But at that point in the game, with Girona pretty weathered down, there were chances. It's not like crossing the ball into the box is necessarily the wrong thing. It's not how Barcelona wants to get their goals, but after 80 minutes of not really doing much anything, putting Alba in to try to deliver that final ball, he still is elite at that skill. And Lewandowski, if he was going to get one, it was going to come that way. So I understand where Xavi was coming from. So it's not a frustration about the sub that was made and that final game plan. It was that it kind of came to that last resort, if you will, because of a lack of success with any other ideas in the 80 minutes prior. 4, time for goal line tech. When I say no ideas, well, there was one idea, and that was Araujo getting it, oh my gosh, 98% over the line. And the VAR, because there's a lack of goal line technology in Spain, while VAR didn't look at all the different cameras and photographs and things, the best perspective was that one looking down the line, and it seemed like the post, was it totally over that line or was it not? I mean, it was awful close, and you totally understand if it was called either way. And I think if it was called a goal, which again is not going to happen, they're going to call it as not a goal. And then if the clear and definite evidence proves it needs to be overturned, they'll overturn it, which there was not the proper evidence to overturn it. So again, you understand the logic, you understand the progression there, that the referee is not going to call that a goal. He's going to let VAR take a look. But because of a lack of goal line technology, VAR really did not have any definite way to overturn that because they did not have an angle to prove that that ball had gone clearly over the line to overturn it. So again, it's just a logic mess, and if Culés want to shout that it was probably all the way over the line, Totally understand that. And if he had called that a goal, I think Girona would have felt hard done by, but I also think that it wouldn't have been the wrong decision either. That said, whether or not that ball was over the line or not, we can't say that the match was riding on that one moment. Because there are matches, especially in the big matches, if you will, where matches are decided in 1 or 2 moments. Not this match. Both teams had a number of opportunities, even people saying that the Castellano miss, as I had just mentioned with that 1v1 with Ter Stegen, meant that Barcelona should have lost all 3 points and they should have lost at home. But no, both teams had their chances in transition. They either were just sloppy, and I don't think either team gave their best today. Maybe it was the Catalan derby aspect, or maybe it was for Barcelona the fact that they were coming off that 4-0 loss in El Clasico. They are 12 points up, at least they started 12 points up, now 13 points up in the table, so maybe they were in second gear. Girona will not be relegated. They also will not be in a Europa League spot this year. So for even Girona, I mean, what was this match about? I think both teams were kind of in second gear, even as much as it was up and down. I don't think either team brought their A game today or had the mental fortitude to actually take all 3 points. And headline 5 is maybe the club is listening. I already did this for the first match in Girona about Arnau Martinez, and I'm going to do it again. Very rarely do I go all in on players, you know that, but Arnau Martinez for a second time this season, and I've seen him in the last 2 years for maybe 18 to 22 times, something in that window. And unlike other prospects for right back like Frimpong, who I've only seen twice, and for him, I think defensively there were issues in those games. I've heard better things and better scouting reports about him in other games, so I really do need to do my homework on him and other right back candidates. But for Arnau Martinez, I've seen enough. The club needs to go for this kind of player, especially at 19. He could be getting even better, but I like what he already is at 19, and that's a player that I would take for 20 million euros, pay the release clause, get in, get out, do your business with Citigroup, wash your hands afterwards, and call it a wrap, add him to the right back rotation. Because just from a financial perspective, how comfortable he was inverting as the other pivot in build-up for Girona could save tons of money. With him, I think the club solves multiple problems. Using that role to start Eric as the pivot and Arnau as the right back in those specific games when you're rotating Busquets, because Busquets likely will be renewed next season for an additional season and saving some money. I understand all the arguments about Amrabat, about all those other options at the pivot, but I just think you're going to be talking outside of Barcelona's price range. Gundogan, that's the option, but Gundogan also can play forward, can play back, and I think, again, versatility at a highest level possible is what makes these teams successful across all competitions. Because Arnau, even at right back, allows you to do different things. Doesn't change your formation, he is a right back. He could even be a right center back, well, again, he steps into a pivot, but his versatility on the field at a high level allows you to do multiple things. And the same thing is with Gundogan. With that is a player that does raise the ceiling in most games, because he is pretty good at playing as a 2 pivot. Next to De Jong, you'd expect that, but he can also play farther forward, allowing Gavi to do other things, maybe in a 4 midfield, and Pedri be on different parts of the field. And if you bring in Messi, you're going to need different options as well. So I think that versatility is another big reason why I go for Arnau Martinez. So again, as people know, very rarely do I stick my neck that far out because, yeah, if he signs for Atletico Madrid like it seems like he's going to, I'm going to have to really root against him, or even if he goes to the Citigroup and then goes somewhere else being sold by them, or even stays at Man City to try to become the next Cancelo, I'll have to, kind of poo-poo the player. But Arnau Martinez, with even that defensive play he did, throwing his head at it just like Gavi, funny that they were former teammates. But you get the point. 20 million euro release clause. Get it done, Barcelona. Instead of going 18 million for Carrasco, bring Abde back instead. So there are options for the club. I have my picks, and they're going to have their reasons as well. And I'm just going to kind of have to accept it because, again, Xabi, Laporta, Mateo Alemany, I think they know better than me. But I do try my best, and that's why I do stick my neck out for former Barcelona players like Arnau Martinez. As I said, Barcelona, get it done. And get it done, unfortunately, wasn't the theme today for Barcelona, but it is the theme in Liga. You got 10 matches left to take care of business. You're up by 13 in the league table. It should be Barcelona's, but there are some roadblocks ahead, including Atletico Madrid in 2 matches' time after Getafe on the weekend. So Barcelona, the walking wounded, will be coming back in the next few weeks, that being Pedri, Dembele, Frenkie de Jong, Christensen. But if players do have knocks, even with those 10 games left and the league is still in question, I say you're going to try to shut some of these guys down. You want to give them as much rest and just make sure everybody's healthy, because next season, everything is even more important, I think, than it was this year. You take your trophies and you get excited about, again, today I think felt like a tryout for a lot of different players. Some did well, some didn't. We didn't even talk about Rafinha, and we'll cover him tomorrow on the podcast. And we're going to cover a bunch of other stuff on the podcast as well, so make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it, or put it in your ears. I do enjoy it, and it actually does benefit me when you listen to the whole thing on audio. I also edit it a lot more. When here on the video format, that podcast is just unedited, long, and I know you get frustrated about the ums and the ahs and things, but it's much, much cleaner. It's an edited down audio. So if you do listen on audio, that's a big help as well. But as always, until next time, thank you so much for being with me. And until next time, Forza Barca.